Billionaire mom exposed. Discover the amazing bond as Maid teaches blind son to fight. Transform your perspective on wealth and loneliness. Michelle Hartman, the epitome of success, sat alone in her grand Beverly Hills mansion, surrounded by opulence but engulfed by isolation. Even the shimmering city lights outside her towering windows felt distant, like a world she was never part of. Her empire of high-end brands thrived, yet a gnawing void consumed her as she reflected on the life of her 13-year-old son, Luke. Regardless of her wealth, she felt helpless, watching as the world outside buzzed with connections, and her blind son retreated into a shell formed by layers of social anxiety. The silence between them stretched like a canyon. Each morning as Michelle navigated meetings with high-profile executives, her thoughts were constantly pulled back to Luke. Wearing designer attire, she felt torn as she pressed her manicured nail against the screen of her latest project. Each successful launch feels like another nail in the coffin of their relationship. Was nurturing her business truly worth sacrificing time with him? The weight of expectation hung heavy on her. Her mind raced with self-doubt. Was she a good mother if she was neglecting him for her empire? She felt the pressure rising, the acknowledgement that behind every success was a gaping chasm of loneliness, echoing her failures as a parent. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As the moon spilled light into the house, Ana, the young maid from Mexico, entered their lives. From the moment Michelle met her, that stark contrast in reality made her uneasy. Ana's spirit, shaped by struggle and resilience, illuminated darkness within the walls of their extravagance. But what stirred the most was the connection she forged with Luke, the warmth in her presence that radiated where Michelle's expensive decor failed. Luke blossomed under Ana's guidance, each session resonating with an energy that Michelle desperately craved to understand. A new world opened to him, centered on martial arts, where he learned to unlock the potential buried beneath his blindness. Yet, as Luke's confidence grew, so did Michelle's anxiety. With every jab and kick Ana taught him, Michelle's expectations cast shadows over their bond. "You should focus on the family business," she insisted during a strained dinner, her voice sharp with determination. "We can't let anything dilute our legacy." Watching the devastation on Luke's face ignited her worst fears. What if her unyielding grip tore him away from this newfound strength? With each passing day, the tension between their aspirations tightened, the air thick with unspoken words and glaring choices. Just when the emotional bond seemed insurmountable, doubt beckoned. Could Michelle really see her son as he captured this new passion? Could Ana stay by his side against the tides of wealth? The stakes felt unbearably high, and in that desperation, they stood at the precipice of everything, each person wrestling with the weight of their truth in a world that seemed grotesquely skewed. The fraught balance between love and loyalty left them clenching onto hope, as their fractured reality threatened to shatter completely. Would Michelle realize the worth of her son's dreams before it was too late? The unresolved tension spiraled, hanging in the air, leaving all three individuals yearning for a resolution, yet unsure if it would ever come. Michelle stood on the precipice of an emotional storm. Each morning brought with it a battle against the oppressive weight of her decisions. The luxury of her surroundings felt suffocating, a gilded cage that contained not just her achievements, but also her growing fears. As Luke embraced martial arts, his identity was reshaped, yet Michelle remained tethered to the vestiges of her own legacy. The disconnect between them felt insurmountable. Each jab Luke threw in training echoed the unspoken arguments swirling in her mind. In the quiet moments before dawn, she often found herself waking earlier than necessary, staring blankly at the shadowy outline of the city through her bedroom window. The thrill of success dulled by the throb of guilt roiled within her. What good was wealth if the very foundations of her life felt fragile? The contrast between her thriving business and the crumbling relationship with her son gnawed at her relentlessly. What had she sacrificed in the name of success? Determined to bridge the gap, she formulated a plan. The next evening, after an intense day filled with negotiations and brainstorming about her business's expansion, She approached Luke's training session with a newfound resolve. She arrived at the dojo where Anna was skillfully guiding Luke through a new set of movements, his face lit with concentration. Michelle stood in the doorway, briefly lost in the sight of her son, finding joy in something she had not permitted him until now. "Can I join you?" she asked, her voice wavering yet hopeful. Anna paused, her expression a blend of surprise and encouragement. Luke turned to her, uncertainty flitting across his features. "Mom?" "Yes," she replied, crossing the threshold into his world. As she stepped onto the mat, an unfamiliar sense of vulnerability washed over her. How could she possibly keep pace with what Luke had been learning? "Just be yourself," Anna urged, a gentle prod of support. Michelle navigated the movements, awkward yet committed, feeling clumsy yet free. Luke laughed, and for a moment, the distance between their hearts seemed to shrink. Instruction transformed into a light-hearted game, where laughter replaced the heavy silences that usually surrounded them. Yet beneath the surface, the conflict brewed. Michelle wrestled with a sense of loss as she realized how far behind she was in understanding her son's new passion. The revelation stung, yet deep down, a flicker ignited a flicker of determination to learn, to adapt. Over the next few weeks, Luke thrived, his confidence flourishing under Anna's watchful eye. Meanwhile, Michelle noticed changes in herself. She began actively engaging in Luke's interests, pushing aside the suffocating grip of her business to meet him where he was. The tension began to morph, evolving into a questioning of her motives. Was her role merely as a provider? Or could she strive to be a true participant in his life, understanding his dreams and fears? One evening she found herself alone, reflecting deep into the night. She had come to realize that Anna wasn't just a maid. She had woven herself into their lives, forming connections that exposed Michelle's own shortcomings. The jealousy crept into her heart, yet she knew it was essential for growth to confront it head-on. Then, in the stillness of her sprawling mansion, an urgent thought seized her. If she continued ignoring the significance of Luke's journey, she risked losing him entirely. Could she really confront that fear? The stakes were real, but as fate would have it, a shocking revelation awaited her, a twist that would challenge everything she thought she knew about family, loyalty, and her own motherhood. The next day, she would discover what hidden truths lay buried in her past, waiting to be unearthed, and how they would affect her future. What was it that she had yet to acknowledge? As the dawn broke, so too did the whirlpool of anxiety-laden anticipation build within her. Would she be ready to face the confrontation ahead? Michelle arrived at the office the following morning with a palpable determination thrumming inside her. The usual chaos of her corporate life seemed distant compared to the emotional tumult she faced at home. She wanted to take control, not just of the negotiations waiting for her, but of the life she was building, or rather, rebuilding with Luke. Yet, as she began to sift through paperwork, her thoughts still clung to the impending revelation that loomed just outside her grasp. A familiar face appeared in her office doorway. Jake, her right-hand man, casually leaning against the frame, uncertainty etched across his features. "You okay? You seem off," he ventured, concern lacing his words. She waved him in, unable to mask her anxiety. "Just a lot on my plate," she replied, choosing to deflect. Yet in that moment, she realized the dichotomy in their conversations. He often focused on operational metrics, while she was wrestling with the fragility of her family dynamics. "Need help? I can take some of the load," he offered. "No," she said sharply, instantly regretting her tone. "I need to handle this myself," she added, her voice softening. It was a familiar refrain, one that spoke to her desire for independence, but highlighted her isolating tendencies. As he left, she caught sight of her reflection in the glass. "Doesn't he seem like I'm handling anything at all?" Later, as she delved into strategic meetings, each discussion focused on profit margins and expansion plans, felt like a diversion. She was acutely aware that the chaos outside the conference room belied the chaos in her heart. Luke was growing, learning, and potentially slipping away from her grasp. The thought became a mantra. Keep engaged, keep involved. Returning home, she was determined to address the realities of her life more intentionally. That evening, under the pretense of asking Luke about his training, she surprised him with an invitation to join a local martial arts seminar over the weekend. "I thought we could learn together," she suggested, hoping to plant the seeds of connection they desperately needed. Luke's gaze flickered with hesitance. "Really? You want to do that?" Yes, she answered, voice steady, betraying only a hint of nervousness. I want to understand. I want us to share something. Her heart raced as she spoke. His eyes widened, a mix of hope and incredulity forming a bridge between their fractured world. Okay, Mom, he finally agreed, a smile creeping onto his face. The next few days passed with the urgency of a countdown. As she prepared for the seminar, she couldn't shake the sense of dread mixed with anticipation brewing in her gut. What if she stumbled again? What if she embarrassed herself? Questions rattled in her mind, but they only fueled her determination to confront her fears instead of retreating. Arriving at the gym that weekend, the environment buzzed with energy and excitement. The blend of sweat and discipline permeated the air, reminding her of the physical demand that accompanied Luke's newfound passion. She quickly found herself entering the dojo, but the atmosphere was overwhelmingly vibrant, nearly suffocating in intensity. The seminar unfolded like a whirlwind. As movements flowed seamlessly from instructor to student, Michelle felt out of place. She observed Luke's confidence grow with each successful technique, yet insecurity began to challenge her resolve. Questions reverberated. Could she truly belong here? What if she failed this time? Sensing her apprehension, Luke approached during a break. Mom, it's okay not to be perfect. Just try to have fun. His encouragement resonated, but also ignited a pang of guilt. How could he reassure her when he was the one overcoming so much? The thought sparked something within her, a resolve to push through the doubts. When the next round of exercises commenced, she decided to dive in rather than hesitate. The movements felt unnatural at first, but with each practiced motion, she discovered resilience, a quiet strength emerging from within. She no longer focused solely on keeping Luke's pace but rather began to internalize the essence of what they were sharing, the joy of connection, the ability to falter and rise again together. As sweat dripped down her brow, she noticed the shifting dynamics not just between mother and son, but between their roles in life. Yet it was an offhand comment from an observer, a seasoned martial artist with clear eyes, that rocked her to the core. You're braver than most. But always remember, true strength isn't in what you can do alone. Her breath hitched, stirring an uncomfortable truth lurking beneath. What had she overlooked in her pursuit of success? This lesson that perhaps, to be truly strong, she needed to lean on others, to embrace vulnerability. As the session concluded with a powerful group exercise, she felt the strain of her past decisions pressing heavily upon her. A new quest had begun. It was more than sharing a hobby, more than just a training seminar. The specters of her past swirled around her mind, hidden truths, family secrets, and an unacknowledged fear of failure. As she left the gym, a determination rippled through her. What if this was just the beginning? There were more layers to uncover, deeper connections to explore. The shadow of revelation hung over her, as did the weight of those truths long buried. With her heart pounding in anticipation, she made a vow to herself. She would rip the facade of her perfect life apart and embrace the chaos. The moment was nearing. What was it that awaited to be discovered? What would she ultimately confront about her past that could change everything? The following week, Michelle returned to the office ready to tackle her workload with a renewed sense of purpose. Yet beneath that mask of professionalism lay an undercurrent of turmoil. The seminar had ignited something within her, a willingness to confront her past, but also an overwhelming fear of what she might uncover. How could she balance the two worlds threatening to collide? The corporate persona she projected at work, and the vulnerable mother determined to reconnect with her son. During a strategy meeting, she noticed Jake casting sidelong glances her way. His concern was palpable. You've seemed off since the seminar. He gently probed during a moment of downtime. Just working through some things, she managed, forcing a weak smile. His straightforwardness reflected what she feared, that others could see her vulnerabilities. The image she crafted, unshakable, efficient, was starting to show cracks. The very thought was unsettling. Yet, rather than retreating to her usual defenses, Michelle essayed a different route. She began to openly solicit input from her team during discussions. As colleagues banded together to hash out ideas, she discovered not just their perspectives, but fresh insights into her own hesitations. There was power in gathering opinions, and amidst the chatter, she could sense a shared understanding. This dynamic shift inspired her. Collaboration brought about innovation, and letting go of the reins just a little felt liberating. By the end of the week, she had conceptualized a new project, aimed at boosting team morale through cross-department initiatives. It took courage to share the plan, but as she articulated her vision, the light in her eyes sparked interest. Jake's nod of approval felt like a beacon. It wasn't just about her anymore. They were building something collectively. The realization soothed her fraught nerves. Still, the complexities at home loomed large. After yet another day of discussions filled with energy and excitement, Michelle returned to an empty house. Luke was at practice. Instead of sinking into isolation, she decided to prepare for their next martial arts class together, this time taking it upon herself to research techniques they could both practice. The balance of being both a mother and a participant ignited her enthusiasm. As the days rolled into the weekend, she observed Luke through the lens of shared growth. Their training sessions were no longer solely about mastering kicks or grapples. They had evolved into moments of laughter, encouragement, and teaching resilience. Each time Luke lost his grip or faltered, she found a way to turn his missteps into opportunities to explore the meaning of perseverance. Remember, it's not about how hard you fall but how you rise back up, she would remind him, a mantra both of them could embrace. One afternoon mid-kick, Luke paused and asked, "Mom, are you scared of failing?" A potent question that struck at her core. The silence that followed felt heavy with unspoken revelations. She could feel the edges of her own fears pressing against her. Sometimes, she finally confessed, "But I'm learning that it's okay." For the first time, she felt the weight of her vulnerability exposing roots that extended beyond herself. Opening up became interwoven in their training's fabric. The lesson was mutual. As she guided him in martial arts, he gradually positioned her lessons against the canvas of his budding self-confidence. Yet the intensity of their training was breeding something anew in her, an eagerness to uncover deeper issues beyond herself. Acknowledging those fears felt like a calling, but what would be revealed when she dared to probe further into her past? The suppressed realities of her upbringing were starting to impose themselves. By the end of their next training session, as they stood together, panting yet satisfied, she caught a glimpse of the unadulterated bond strengthening not just between them, but within her own being. Each passing moment served as a layer stripped away, bringing clarity to the chaos she had lived with for too long. That night, as she prepared for bed, a phrase echoed in her head. True strength isn't in what you can do alone. What other truths waited for her to confront? She shivered slightly, craving the warmth of connection while dreading the revelations that could follow. Wisps of memories flickered, unearthing secrets buried far beneath the surface, leading her to realize she could be simultaneously a work in progress and a strong matriarch. She understood now that her journey involved more than just being a mother. It dictated a transformative reconceptualization of herself entirely, both personally and professionally. The doorway to her past was ajar, fragments of truth whispering on the edges of her consciousness, poised to demand her attention. And as she closed her eyes, she sensed them waiting. What awaited her when she finally unlocked the deeper doors of her emotional landscape? The allure of revelation hung in the air, almost tangible. She would follow her heart into the unknown, but only if she dared to confront the shadows first. What skeletons lay waiting, ready to shape her journey ahead? The next morning, Michelle awoke with a sense of trepidation. The shadows of her past seemed closer than ever, woven into the fabric of her waking life. Determined to embrace the awakening that had begun to take shape, she poured herself a strong cup of coffee, the rich aroma grounding her amidst the uncertainty. Today would be different. Today she would take a step further. As she prepared for work, she glanced at the small wooden box on her dresser. It was filled with old mementos, letters, photographs, tangible memories of a childhood that often left her feeling exposed and vulnerable. Perhaps it was time to revisit those moments, to explore how they sculpted her understanding of connection, of fear, and of self-worth. At work, the atmosphere buzzed, and her team was buzzing about the new project idea she had proposed. She felt their enthusiasm feeding her energy. It wasn't just a professional endeavor. It was a manifestation of her yearning for connection not only with them but with herself. Yet, the thought of peeling back layers of her history tightened her chest. How could she lead others toward openness if she wasn't willing to explore it within? Mid-morning, Michelle found Jake waiting in her office. His expression was serious, a further indication of their growing professional rapport. but also a valued friendship. We need to have a chat, he stated simply, taking a seat across from her. About what? She asked, instantly feeling the flickers of anxiety rise within her. About you, he replied, leaning forward. I care about your well-being. You've been more reserved lately, and you know we're all rooting for you. The sincerity in his voice lingered, cracking her professional veneer. With a deep breath, it occurred to her that perhaps this was an opportunity to practice the openness she demanded from her team, to model vulnerability in the workplace. I went to a seminar last week, she began, her voice slightly shaky, and it really pushed me to confront some aspects of my life, my past isn't exactly something I like to revisit. Jake listened intently, prompting her to continue with silent affirmations. Michelle found herself unveiling threads of her childhood that had long tangled her heart. I've always been afraid of what people might think if they knew the challenges my family faced. The mistakes I've made. She winced at the raw honesty, surprised at her boldness. I admire you for this, Jake said gently. Facing your fears can only make you stronger. Plus, it can inspire others to do the same. The conversation shifted something fundamental within her. Leaving the meeting, she felt lighter yet more aware of the journey ahead. Self-exposure felt like a double-edged sword, offering healing while threatening to strip her of the image she had built. Yet, for the first time, the struggle felt purposeful. That evening, Michelle faced the box on her dresser, her heart pounding. She opened it, breathing in the musty scent of forgotten years. She removed a letter, one she had penned to herself as a teenager. The words spoke of dreams, fears, and a fierce desire to be understood. As she read, tears stung her eyes. Somehow, the girl she had once been felt alive again, beckoning her to acknowledge the timeline of hardships and triumphs that led to her growth. This process was not merely a personal reckoning. It was a necessary step toward triumph in her overall life and career. Clenching the edges of the box, she felt a surge of determination. It was no longer about how she portrayed herself in front of peers. It was about the authenticity she craved for herself and her son. As she tucked the letter back inside, a realization crystallized. The path to self-discovery would not be linear. But somehow it was exactly the journey she needed. For the first time, she imagined what it would be like to introduce Luke to the essence of her past. Could they navigate these revelations together? Would it further strengthen their connection or expose rifts she wasn't prepared to face? With that thought leading her into the night, Michelle made a decision. She would share her experiences with her son, bridging the gap between her old self and the mother she wanted to be. But the key remained to unlock more than just memories. She needed to unveil the lessons hidden inside them. What awaited her in this new commitment? As she pondered the intersections of her identities, she felt an electrifying mixture of anticipation and fear. Tomorrow would mark the beginning of conversations that had long been left unspoken. The doubts could be daunting, but perhaps they would lead her and Luke to a deeper understanding of each other. If only she could find the courage to confront her past. What details about her childhood would they share? And would they stand united or fragmented in the face of truth? The morning sun streamed through Michelle's bedroom window, scattering rays of light across the room. Yet she felt the weight of her sleepless night tugging at her thoughts. Today wasn't just another day at work. It was the day she had chosen to begin a new chapter in her life, one where she would courageously share her past with Luke. The flimsy barrier between mother and son was poised to come crashing down, yet uncertainty lingered like the shadows. As she got ready, she mentally reviewed the conversation she intended to have with him. Would she need to rehearse it? Or did she want it to unfold organically? The idea of sharing her childhood struggles terrified her. But she understood how vital it was to model genuine honesty, if she wanted her son to feel safe enough to express his own fears and dreams. The firm grip of fear was punctuated by a flicker of determination. She thought again about Jake's encouraging words. Facing fears not only inspired others, it had the potential to forge stronger connections. And that was exactly what she wanted with Luke. With newfound resolve, Michelle gathered herself and left for the office, her mind swirling with possibilities. At work, the buzz around the new project was alive as her team gathered for a morning briefing. Their excitement filled the room. Ideas bounced freely, with each contribution revealing a depth of passion she hadn't appreciated before. For a brief moment, the swirling anticipation of her personal life faded, allowing her to immerse herself fully in her role as a leader. She started outlining the next steps, her voice steady and clear. But her heart was a tempest inside. In the back of her mind, though, the lingering thoughts of her son nestled deep, she couldn't afford to ignore them. The more she engaged with her responsibilities, the more urgent the need for that conversation became. During a quick coffee break, she found herself standing by the window, looking out at the world moving on beneath her. She calculated her next moves not just professionally, but in her personal life too. Later in the day, the opportunity to chat with Luke arose. They returned home together after school. His laughter filled the air as he recounted stories from his day, oblivious to the tension resting in her chest. But today felt different, it felt pivotal. "Mom," Luke said, plopping down on the couch, "I wanted to show you something." He tugged at a hidden notebook, scribbled with half-finished drawings and notes. "It's my comic project. Can we work on it together?" A swell of pride erupted in Michelle. "Absolutely," she replied, a smile breaking through her earlier doubt. As they settled alongside each other, she felt the warmth returning, and the gold-lined pages of her past seemed to spark life again, guiding her just as she had guided him. Yet, in between their laughter and creativity, Michelle felt the moment approach, the moment she would have to share her past. With a shaky breath, she steered the conversation toward her own experiences, focusing on lessons learned rather than the pains endured. She spoke first about dreaming big, and how important it was to believe in oneself, drawing parallels between her struggles and his budding ambitions. To her surprise, Luke listened intently. "Can I tell you something too?" he finally asked, making her heart race. "Sometimes I'm scared I'll let you down." His vulnerability struck her like a bolt of electricity. The weight on her chest lifted, replaced with an even deeper connection between them. They were both in this together, two souls unraveling their truths, bound by love and a desire for understanding. As they exchanged stories, Michelle realized that simplicity in their shared moments was the foundation she had long sought. But echoing inside was the recognition that today was just the tip of the iceberg. The conversation still looming would require even more honesty, more rawness than either of them was ready for. "Can we do this again tomorrow?" Luke asked, an eagerness in his voice. "Of course," she replied, but her own heart raced, not just with anticipation for their discussions, but with concern for the depths of her own past yet to reveal. The unease remained, beckoning her to dig deeper. What else would she uncover, not just about her childhood, but also about the complexities of motherhood? Would sharing every detail ultimately strengthen their bond, or would it uncover fractures she had yet to face? Tomorrow promised more than just revelations. It was a gateway into unknown territory, where love and uncertainty danced dangerously close. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows through the living room, Michelle felt a stirring in her stomach that neither the comfort of the evening nor the excitement of their earlier conversation could soothe. It was a premonition of the upcoming discussions, the kind that could lead to deeper understanding or painful revelations. After putting Luke to bed, she retreated to her small office, where the walls adorned with motivational quotes now felt like a cage imprisoning her thoughts. They stared back at her, reminders of the image she worked hard to project, the confident mother and professional who had overcome her past. But tonight that facade felt disturbingly fragile. Sitting at her desk, she pulled out her journal, a therapeutic companion she had treated more like a secret than a tool for self-growth. Flipping through the pages, she read snippets of her journey. The struggles of adolescence, the weight of expectations, the crippling fear of inadequacy that loomed over her even now. Michelle remembered how she had channeled those feelings into relentless ambition, forging a successful career while distancing herself from the emotions that threatened to overwhelm her. But closing that door had come at a cost. She had avoided not just her fears, but her true self, especially in the presence of Luke. The vulnerability she had shown him was a crack in her usual armor, one that she was afraid might widen if she let the floodgates open. An urge to write came over her, a need to articulate what had happened in her life, and what lessons she wanted to impart to her son. She noted down her thoughts. Vulnerability leads to connection. But how much is too much? When does honesty hurt instead of heal? As the ink flowed, she felt the tension in her chest ease slightly, though the questions loomed larger. The clock ticked steadily, a reminder that time wasn't pausing for her internal battles. Tomorrow would arrive, and she could no longer defer facing her ghosts, the ones from her childhood, the burden she felt compelled to carry alone, and the reality she had hidden from Luke. As she wrote, a plan began to form. She needed to be not just honest, but structured in her revelations. Perhaps it was time to share her experiences in layers, allowing Luke to process each part thoroughly. She would start with relatable fears before diving into the tougher topics. Declaring her ambition and aspirations would illustrate the strength she had gained through her struggles, but would also set the stage for discussing the darker events that had shaped her. The sense of purpose flooded her, replacing doubt with a delicate resolve. Tomorrow could redefine their relationship not just as mother and son, but as two people navigating the tumultuous waters of life together. She envisioned moments of openness, where they could seize the opportunity to grow, fostering empathy and deeper connections forged in shared truth. Michelle stood stretched and gazed out of her window at the night sky, filled with stars that seemed far more within reach than ever before. One star caught her attention, shining evidently brighter than the others. It was a reminder of her childhood dreams. Her thoughts turned towards Luke, and the weight he carried, the fear of disappointing her paired with a yearning for her approval. Would he understand the depths of her struggles? Could he accept that she was still a work in progress? In a sudden wave of clarity, she recognized that the only way to assure him of his worth was to disclose her own shortcomings. To say to him that failure was a part of life and growth. But would he truly be able to handle hearing about her darker past? A chill crawled up her spine as the uncertainty washed over her once more. Would the unveiling of her truth bond them closer, or push him away? In that moment, she knew the next day wouldn't merely be another conversation. It would be a reckoning, a delicate balancing act between past and future. As her resolve strengthened, she felt a slight tremor of anticipation in her chest. What had begun as a simple discussion was now a walk into the unknown. With dawn's light, both risk and revelation loomed ahead, promising challenges she could hardly fathom. Could she allow herself to be vulnerable without losing her son? The night deepened, but her mind spun with questions that demanded answers, and tomorrow would bring them forth, one way or another. Morning light filtered through the curtains, illuminating the clutter in her office and casting a warm glow over the pages of her journal that lay open on the desk. Michelle rose, feeling an urgency clawing at her insides. Today was not just another day. Today would be the foundation upon which her relationship with Luke could shift into something real, something profound. Memories of her own life before motherhood flooded her mind as she tidied up. The images weren't always pleasant, but as Michelle organized her workspace, she realized that these moments had shaped much of who she was. Each item was a symbol of a lesson learned the hard way. The ambitious project folders hinted at the relentless drive she possessed, while the forgotten self-help books near the back showed her attempts to understand her inner turmoil. As she prepared breakfast, the rhythmic clanging of pots and pans provided a backdrop for her racing thoughts. The kitchen, usually a refuge, felt confined today. It offered not just the tools for nurturing Luke, but also a reminder of the barriers she had built between them. Could she shatter those walls without her own fear consuming her? With the scent of pancakes wafting through the air, Luke wandered in, bleary-eyed but smiling, a canvas of innocence and wonder. His attention flickered to her, and Michelle felt a rush of familiar affection mixed with apprehension. She wanted to convey strength, yet this morning vulnerability simmered just beneath her surface. What would he think of her journey? Would he see her more clearly at last, or would he retreat into confusion? "Good morning, Mom," he chirped, plopping down at the table while rubbing sleep from his eyes. "Morning, sweetheart," she replied, mustering a smile that felt like a fragile mask. As they shared breakfast, she noticed his gaze darting between the delicious food and her hesitant demeanor. It dawned on her how attuned he was to her feelings, how Luke sensed even the slightest shifts in her emotional landscape. After breakfast, they retreated to the cozy living room, a space that felt inviting yet fraught with unspoken truths. As they nestled into the couch, the moment stretched, heavy with anticipation. Michelle took a deep breath. The time had come to engage in the conversation she had mentally rehearsed all night. "Luke," she began, her voice trembling with an unexpected vulnerability, "I think it's important for us to talk about some things today, things that might help us understand each other better." He tilted his head, curiosity brightening his expression. "Okay, what do you want to talk about?" She hesitated, her heart racing as she structured her thoughts. This was the pivotal moment. Should she begin with her fears, or with the ambitions that had driven her? Would she burden him with her shadows too soon? I want to share with you some parts of my life, things that shaped who I am, and how I've become the person you see today. Some of this may be hard to hear, but I promise it's really about us learning and growing closer, she explained, delicately weaving the thread of connection through her words. As she revealed snippets of her childhood fears and the pressure she felt to succeed, she gauged his reactions. Luke listened attentively, his expression transitioning from surprise to concern, and finally to understanding. The more she revealed, the more she felt the weight of her past lifting, though uncertainty still gnawed at her. But just as the conversation flowed into the darker territories of her struggles, the doorbell rang shrilly, slicing through the moment like a knife. It jarred Michelle, instantly dousing the warmth that had begun to bloom between them with a gust of confusion. What was that? Luke asked, his wide eyes searching hers for a clue. The unannounced intrusion brought with it a fresh wave of anxiety. Michelle knew she had a choice to make. To let the momentary distraction pull them apart, or to muster the courage to continue into the unknown depths of her narrative. Confront this unforeseen hurdle, or retreat into the safety of silence. As she contemplated how to respond, a surge of determination rushed through her. She couldn't let interruptions define their connection. That was just a bump in the road, Luke. Let us keep our conversation going. I've got more to share and I can't let that stop us. And with that, she faced him again, steeling herself for deeper truths that lay ahead, aware that every revelation could either build their bond or test it. Would they emerge stronger together? Or would the walls she feared still persist? The challenge had been set. Today was nothing short of a reckoning. The hour was upon her to navigate this delicate path, leading to a fate she could not yet see. What awaited them on the other side of this conversation hung heavily in the air, promising uncertainty with each breath. Michelle took a deep breath, grounding herself in the moment despite the chaos that threatened to unravel the connection she had begun to form with Luke. She watched him carefully. His innocent curiosity was a reminder that every word she spoke could either soothe or disturb the fragile trust being established between them. "Remember when I told you about some of my dreams?" she asked, her voice steadying slightly as she shifted the focus back to their conversation. "There's something I want to explore with you about those dreams today." Luke leaned forward, the chair creak echoing in the silence. His eyes lit up with interest, and for a moment, the doorbell's intrusion faded into the background. "What about them?" Michelle felt a flutter of excitement. The moment had come to not only reveal parts of her past, but also to set an example of resilience and ambition. "Well, a long time ago I dreamed of becoming an architect. I wanted to create beautiful buildings that people would love." She saw a flicker of recognition flash across Luke's face. He seemed to understand that each of her aspirations held weight, each one a layer of the foundation she had built for their lives. "But why didn't you?" he asked, a hint of concern creeping into his voice. A knot formed in Michelle's throat. This question cut deep. She struggled to frame an answer that wove together ambition, restraint, and a mother's love. "Life happened, sweetheart. I got caught up in other responsibilities and let my dream take a back seat. I thought being a mom and a wife was all I needed to focus on." Luke frowned, his young mind grappling with these realizations. "But you don't have to stop dreaming, right?" His words struck a chord within her. He was right. She had allowed fear to entrap her potential, tying it like anchor weights around her ambitions. "No, we don't have to stop. Dreams can change and grow," she acknowledged, her voice steadying with the truth of it. "And just like how you're learning karate to gain confidence, I can rebuild my dreams too." A sudden spark ignited within Michelle, a burgeoning flame fueled not just by her desire for personal growth, but also by the wish to lead by example. It was time to reclaim her narrative and inspire Luke to pursue his own dreams without hesitation. What if we explore our dreams together?" she proposed with newfound enthusiasm, her heart racing at the mere thought. "We could set goals, tackle new experiences, and build each other up." Luke's face broke into a grin, uncertainty giving way to excitement. "That sounds awesome. Can we build something together like a fort?" Michelle chuckled, feeling her nervousness dissipate. "We can certainly do that. Let us expand on that idea. We can design your fort. You can be the architect just like I dreamed to be. Images swirled in her mind of blueprints strewn across the living room floor. The two of them collaborating on the design, her son's infectious joy lifting her spirits higher. It felt like the true essence of motherhood, going beyond the conventional to nurture each other's dreams and ambitions. Yet beneath that warmth lay a simmering conflict. As much as she wanted to embrace this new direction, Michelle felt an underlying fear of her own capabilities creeping back in. Could she truly step outside her self-imposed boundaries, deepen her involvement with her aspirations, and support Luke with vulnerable honesty? The notion of facing her fears was terrifying. Michelle, the potential for failure lurks right there, she rationalized internally. But that very moment, as she looked into Luke's bright eyes filled with hopes and dreams, she recognized her challenge. She had to release those fears and unlock the potential they both had hidden for so long. "This is just the beginning, isn't it?" she asked softly, her spirit lifting. "Yeah," he nodded. "It's going to be epic." Motivated by his innocent confidence, Michelle felt an unfamiliar resolve. Together they could craft lives built on authenticity, driven by mutual support. But before she could settle into this newfound vision, knock interrupted them sharper than before. Tension pulsed through her once again, shadows of unease snaking back in. She paused, glancing through the window where a figure stood outlined against the sunlight. A woman with a determined expression, someone from her past. The challenge shifted before them, transforming once more. She had uncovered dreams, yet the past now called to challenge her resolve. Who was this woman? What hidden truths would she bring to light? And how would that redefine Michelle's journey of self-discovery? It was time to confront the ghosts that lurked in the periphery, test her resilience against old enemies, and decide if she was ready to truly face whatever awaited her on the threshold. With pounding hearts, Michelle and Luke exchanged worried glances. The knock came again, this time more insistent. The fragile tension in the air felt like a taut string poised to snap, yet Michelle could sense a peculiar strength rising within her. "Stay here," she instructed Luke softly, placing a reassuring hand on his shoulder before crossing the room to answer the door. Each step was heavy with the weight of uncertainty. When she opened the door, her breath caught in her throat. It was Veronica, a figure from her past, an old rival from college who once inspired both admiration and deep-seated insecurity. Veronica stood tall, her expression a blend of determination and something that resembled remorse. "Michelle," she began, and the way she said her name echoed with years of history. "I know this is unexpected, but I need to speak with you." Taking a steadying breath, Michelle felt the surge of emotions. Confusion, fear, and the flicker of opportunity for resolution. "What do you want?" she asked, her voice firm yet a bit shaky. "I came to apologize. I didn't realize how my actions impacted you back then. I underestimated the weight of my ambition on your insecurities," Veronica confessed, her eyes welling with unexpected sincerity. Michelle's world paused, memories flooding back. The competitive spirit, the nights spent doubting herself, the moments when she had retreated behind her veils of success instead of facing the truth of her struggles. It had yet again driven her into a corner where she questioned her worth. For so long she had viewed Veronica's success as a threat, an unbearable reminder of her own perceived shortcomings. But could she really redefine that fear? The past stood on the cusp of transformation. "We've all made mistakes," Michelle replied, her voice steadier than she felt. "But it's time to move forward. I've found strength in vulnerability." Luke's head peeked out from behind Michelle, wide-eyed. "Is that the lady who used to win all the awards?" "Yes," Michelle said, her resolve strengthening as she cast a glance back at her son. "But today is no longer about awards. It's about connections, growth, and learning from each other." Veronica nodded in understanding, her demeanor softening. "I can see that you've grown. I admire you, Michelle. I came to acknowledge that I made it hard for people to recognize their value, unless they measured up to my standards. It wasn't right. We're better than that." Michelle felt a shift evolve in this moment of honesty. "You're right. I let it affect how I viewed myself. We never need to compete. We should be lifting each other up." The realization surged through her. The past didn't define her strength, nor did it inhibit her dreams. Rather, it had been the stepping stone she had climbed to reach the person she was becoming now. "Would you like to join us for a moment?" Michelle asked, her tone inviting an opportunity for unity, the very thing she had always craved, and which Luke embodied so naturally. The warmth in the room shifted as Veronica accepted the invitation, stepping inside. Perhaps the presence of this familiar adversary could become an ally instead, a chance to mend the rift that had plagued her earlier years, and to model positive connections for Luke. As they settled in the living room, Michelle initiated dialogue about dreams, mutual support, and how important it was for their children to see strength in vulnerability and compassion. The conversations unfolded between the three of them, revealing layers of shared experiences and newfound respect. That day bore remarkable fruit, an unexpected trinity of insights that set the tone for Michelle's path of redemption, healing, and connection. Luke watched with keen interest, his eyes reflecting the weight of knowledge that steps toward progress could come from any encounter, no matter how unforeseen. The intensity of the conversation made Michelle realize that she had surged beyond mere survival. She was now claiming her loud and vibrant existence. When Veronica eventually excused herself, Michelle felt the pressure of her past transform into a springboard for future endeavors. "Can we still work on the fort? I think it could be epic," Luke inquired, his hope radiating through the room. "Yes, let us get started," Michelle exclaimed, allowing her heart to lead the way into the next phase of their journey together. As they gathered materials and brainstormed the design, clarity flooded through Michelle. This fort was not just a physical structure. It represented her commitment to keep building connections, sparking dialogue filled with hope, truth, and shared dreams. Where walls once existed, there was now room for openness and growth. In those moments amidst laughter, creativity, and an unspoken promise to move forward together, Michelle witnessed authentic resilience blooming amongst them. It invigorated her spirit, sealing the notion that every challenge could birth an opportunity for rebirth and deeper connection, ultimately molding a future that showcased both strength and vulnerability. And at that very moment, as they sketched plans against the living room wall, Michelle felt affirmation sweep through her. She was on the precipice of becoming the mother she had always wanted to be, a beacon of encouragement for Luke, a visionary for herself. This fort they would build together was only the beginning. The dreams they would chase would herald the life they wanted to lead, and the legacy they would create unapologetically, in full bloom. As the sun set behind them, Michelle glanced out the window, embracing the unfolding path ahead. Tomorrow might present new challenges, hidden truths, and layered questions that awaited exploration, but she felt ready. There would be no more turning back. The bond with Luke, infused with honesty and shared aspirations, had begun a remarkable journey. Each heartbeat reinforced Michelle's realization. Life was not just about wealth or achievement. It was about connection, authenticity, and delicate yet powerful growth, interwoven with love. The chapter had closed on trepidation, but it opened wide towards opportunity. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm because it really makes a difference. Comment below your reactions and theories about the ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to share. The true fans of personal overcoming stories know the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.